why we need to stop blaming government. This is becoming a huge issue for me because I feel like every time I surf the web and I'm reading comments and what people are saying, everybody wants to blame government for everything. And they oh, the government's evil. Oh, the government's corrupt. It's the government. And there's a huge misconception going on here, and I want to clarify it. And that's what this episode is about. So let's dive into it. This episode was definitely prompted. It was definitely prompted by a conversation or a debate I was having with someone online, who I like and respect a lot. But we were having just a debate about it. And one of the things that was being said, or I guess you could say one of the most reoccurring constant things that are always being said is how corrupt the government is. But I want to point something out to you guys. And the way that I'll explain it is like this. If you never do your dishes, if every time you cook a meal and you pile the dishes in the sink over and over and over again, you can't then turn around and blame the sink for why there's dishes in the sink. Okay? So, it's not the sink's fault. It's your fault for loading it with horrible dishes. So put the blame where it goes and hold yourself accountable for filling the sink up, right? It's the same exact thing with a car. If you don't change the oil, if you constantly drive around on little to no gas, if you don't, put air in the tires when it needs it, if you don't clean it and take care of it, it's gonna fall apart quickly. And you can't go, well, it's the car's fault. It's the owner's fault. Okay? So the reason why I'm stating this is because the government has been corrupted. That is true. But it's also true, or I would say it's also wise not to blame the victim and say, well, the government is bad because it's corrupt. No. The billionaire oligarch mafia that controls the vast majority of what's going on in this country, they corrupted the government. They are the person who put the dishes in the sink. They are the person who didn't change the oil or put air in the tires. And so my point is this. The American government, which is the best system ever conceived in the history of mankind, and everybody knows that. There's a reason why, we were emulated by every country on earth for decades. Over three, I would say arguably 2 centuries, 2.5 centuries, something like that. We are the envy of the world in a lot of cases, or we were, because of our system of government. It's beautiful. It's great. But I'm not gonna bore you with all the details of why our government is amazing. It is the money, Sherry, exactly. The reason why, or our government, the politicians, okay, when you say, well, the government's corrupt, you're referring to politicians. You're saying the politicians are corrupt. And that may be true, but who corrupted them and who put them there? Who put them there? Are the people that represent the government right now, are they really representing you the way that the system is supposed to work? So the way that our government is designed and how it's always been supposed to work is we, as the American people, we vote in representatives, we vote in senators, and once we vote these people in, their job is to be the voice of us, their constituents. And then they go and they make votes and cast votes and pass legislature that is what we, the American people, want or don't want. And when they get those things passed, we, the people who voted them in, and they all collectively represent the body of the people, they go in and then they vote and it becomes law, or it doesn't become law, or a law becomes amended, so forth. And that, of course, it goes to the other branch of government, which is that would be the legislative branch, but then it goes to the executive branch, the president has to sign off, and then after that, obviously the Supreme Court has to rule that it's not unconstitutional, and voila, suddenly it's a law, or it's not a law, or it's an amended law, or whatever. And this is how it's supposed to work. And the way that and the reason why I'm bringing this all up is because the people who are in government, the politicians who are in government, are not the people, in many cases, not all of them, but in many cases, are not the people that we really want to be in office or representing us. And what I mean by that is that there was look up the Lewis Powell Memorandum. The Lewis Powell Memorandum, which was written by a Supreme Court Judge, Lewis Powell. And it was back in the 70s, early 70s. I believe it was 71, but I could be wrong. Don't quote me. But Lewis Powell wrote a memorandum basically stating that because of the 60s, Martin Luther King, the Woodstock and the hippie era and everybody, that they felt like there was too much democracy, and that the people were actually in charge of the country, and that wasn't good. And that corporations needed to take over the resources and control and dominate the resources so that they could basically have more control over the direction of things. They wanted a corporate takeover. Google it, Lewis Powell Memorandum. It's a real memorandum. It really happened. Well, this went on to become, or I guess you could say bloomed into Buckley v. Valeo. And Buckley v. Valeo was a law that ended up passing, which basically made it so that the ultra wealthy could give unlimited amounts of money to campaign finance. Now, once this happened, you embarked on a situation where we embarked on a situation, the country did, where those with the money started to decide who our politicians were. You understand what I'm saying? They decided who our politicians were. The money did. Why? Because if it costs money to win an election, okay, then he or she who have the money winneth. He or she who haveth the money winneth, right? So we wound up in a situation where people running for election, even people who meant well, people who wanted to change the world, who wanted to have a positive impact on the world, they needed to get money to be able to go out and market and advertise and run ads and go and tour around and talk to the people. It costs money. And if the wealthiest people, because it was deemed free speech, were allowed to give unlimited campaign contributions to a candidate, it broke the system. Because now you had the ultra wealthy in a position where they could essentially go, all right, well, if we can decide with our money who's going to win, then we can control things. Because this will basically mean that if we want to, if there's a regulatory measure where they're making, a meat factory test its meat products to make sure that they're not loaded with impurities. Well, if I own a multi-million-dollar meat factory, I could just give $2 million to a senator, help him win an election, and have him remove the law. And we'll be in charge of the people that are in there, and we'll only fund and back the people that are willing to do our bidding. Do you see what happened there? So when I talk about why you shouldn't blame government, that's why. Because the government, many politicians, obviously not all, but some really want to do the will of the people. They were activists, they really cared, and they did whatever they could to get in government because they wanted to make change. That's a true thing. But how do you make change when every second of your day is spent dialing for dollars? Because you need to keep winning, 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 winning. You need to keep getting funded, getting funded, getting funded. So if you're a person, okay, let me walk it back. Let's say you're this person. You're an activist. You know, you're out, you're protesting. There's an issue that really means something to you, like homelessness. You're really, really hell-bent on fixing homelessness. You hate it. It hurts you. You're an empath. You want to do something about it. So you're protesting. You're raising awareness. You're doing all this stuff. And then you say, you know what? I want to get in government. Maybe you raise some, a nonprofit that starts to bring in money, something like that. And then because of that, you start to become more and more successful, more known, getting your name out there. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to run for office. I really want to do something. I really want to enact change. Well, here's where everything goes sideways. Instead of being able to get, a run for office, just being a decent person and talking about what matters to you, letting it resonate with the voter, getting their votes and winning, and then being able to go in and enact change. No, it doesn't work that way anymore. Not since Buckley v. Valeo passed in 1976. It doesn't work that way anymore. Because now, and if you're this person and you want to change homelessness or you want to fix it, you now have to go, all right, well, if I'm going to do that, I need to win. And I can't win because my opponent's getting millions and millions of dollars to run ad campaigns and all this stuff. I will not be able to beat them if I don't have funding. So you end up dialing for dollars. Because ever since Buckley v. Valeo passed, it changed the game where it basically made it so that it became more and more and more expensive to run for any office. So it wasn't like the little guy could go, I don't care if they have money, I'll still win. No. Now it's so expensive, you will get drowned out completely by your opponent if they're taking the bribe, if they're on the dole and they're getting money from billionaires and you're not, you lose. And so what does this empath want to do? Win. Why? Because they want to change homelessness. And so what do? Whatever it takes to get money, dial in for dollars. And what do billionaires tell them? We know homelessness is important to you. We know you want to win because we know you want to fix homelessness. So here's what we're going to do. We have a little bit of a problem. Our competitor is beating us because they're getting precious metals from Greenland or some, I don't know, some country or some Germany or whatever, right? They're getting precious metals from this place and they're able to beat us. We want you to make it illegal to get precious metals from that country. So it'll wipe out our competitor. And we're going to give you millions of dollars so that you can win the election and change homelessness and do your little thing that you want to do to fix homelessness. But you're going to have to go ahead and pass that legislation for us because we need it as a corporation. We need to eat our competition. And so that's what happens. So now little Miss Empath who wants to fix homelessness takes the money. She has no choice. If she's going to solve homelessness and get in there and get her initiative put forth, she's got to win. And she needs the money. So she says yes. And then she says yes again. And then she says yes again, because obviously 2 million ain't going to win it. 4 million ain't going to win it. 10 million ain't going to win it. No, you need 50 million. You need 100 million. So you start taking 2 million and 3 million and 4 million from 20, 30, 40 multi-centimillion-dollar or billion-dollar corporations to get your money to win. But now what is your job now? Now, all of a sudden, you wind up in office and you can't do the homelessness thing because you're spending every waking minute trying to get all the legislation passed that the billionaires who put you in office expect you to do. And if you don't fulfill their every whim, then they won't finance you and you won't be a politician in the next election because they will finance your competitor in the next election and smoke you in the next primary with somebody else that will get it done. And that, my friends, is not the government being corrupt. That is billionaire corporations corrupting the government, putting dishes in the sink, not changing the oil, not putting air in the tire. Are you with me? Are you following me? So when you sit there and you blame government, understand government is the last line of defense that we, the people, have against corporate tyranny. You know, when I was growing up, I would always hear people say, oh, the government's going to spy on us. Everywhere we go, they're going to be watching us. The government's going to be recording everything we do. We're going to be on camera everywhere. The government's going to be listening devices. We'll be, listening to everything. They'll have data on all of us. It'll be like 1984. It's funny because that is happening, but it's not the government. Who's doing that? Google, Apple, Palantir, Meta. That's who's doing that. Microsoft. It's not the government. It's corporations that are recording you and filming you and making sure everything's recorded and on film and collecting all your data. It's not the government. It's corporations. It's corporations. And what is the government? Well, let me explain. When you have corporations, it used to be, or it's always been illegal to film people without their consent, unless, of course, you're in public places, which is, I think, has always been okay. But there's a lot of I don't know the full laws around it, but I know that everything that's going on right now with Ring doorbells and all the shit did not used to be allowed. Now, there's loopholes through the new technology, but the technology advances faster than our laws can get passed. So because we have such a very good system of government, it takes a long time to get a law passed. A long time. You have to get a lawyer to draft the legislative bill. You have to get the bill on the House floor. You have to get the House to accept it and into the voting block. Then they have to vote on it. And then if they vote on it, there's still, even if it passes, they gotta go over it. They gotta look at it, see if what's earmarked in it, what they want to get rid of, what they want to put in it, all this stuff. And then it gets to the Senate. Then the Senate's going to vote on it, and then they're going to do the same thing and deliberate over the little things in the bill. And then after that gets passed, the president has to sign off on it, and whether or not he vetoes it or likes it or signs off on it. And then the Supreme Court has to rule on it, whether it's constitutional or non-constitutional. It's very difficult to get laws passed in America. And rightfully so. It should be like that because laws are very important. And they are the king of America. They are the ruler of America, the law. And so it's very, very difficult to be able to get a law created or passed, right? So if technology could just rapidly advance, there's no AI laws. AI came out of nowhere in the last 3 to 5 years and just rapidly advanced. So AI is advancing faster than the law can regulate it. Understand? Same thing that happened with Ring doorbells and iPhones and all. The technology has been rapidly advancing faster than our laws have been able to regulate it. And who regulates it? The government. The government. So why don't they regulate it? Why aren't laws being passed? Why aren't they trying? Well, because they're the people that are in office, not all, but a lot, were not put there by your vote. They were put there by the corporations that own the technology. They were put there by the corporations that own the technology. And so therefore, those politicians are not going to pass legislation to regulate Apple and Microsoft and Meta and Palantir because these politicians were put there by these corporations. They were funded by these corporations. These corporations are who gave them the money to run their giant campaigns to win in the first place. And why? Because of Buckley v. Valeo. And not just Buckley v. Valeo, but later on they added more with Citizens United, which allowed super PACs like AIPAC, which is the biggest, one of the biggest super PACs in the world. And it's an Israeli, it's basically a way for Israel to have more of an effect on American politicians than any Americans vote. And those two things, Buckley v. Valeo and Citizens United, are what is wrong with the country. Period. That's it. It's that simple. If you get enough people to vote, or not vote, I think it starts with a petition, but it's a long, arduous process, but America needs to unite around removing Buckley v. Valeo, reversing it or amending it in some way where it could stop being abused, and Citizens United needs to be abolished. And then on top of that, we need government-funded elections. Government-funded. So we're all taxpayers. Well, if you work in any capacity and make money, you're a taxpayer to a degree. You pay taxes even if you don't. You pay sales tax. Even if you have no job and someone just gave you 20 bucks, when you go to the store to buy something with that 20 bucks, you're going to pay sales tax, right? We all pay taxes into the system, everybody, right? So if that money that we're paying into the system was used to fund the elections, then the government works for us. The politicians work for us. You work for who pays you. Everybody knows that. You work for who pays you. So if the billionaires are the ones financing their campaign funding, then that's who they work for. If the taxpayers were financing their campaign, then that's who they work for. Are you with me? So the bottom line is that the government is the last line of defense that we have to protect us from corporations, from them overstepping. Now, you guys know I made a video the other day about my favorite top 15 billionaires. I love Google's ownership. They're great people. I don't think that they would have, I really don't think that they have any negative intention. And that's fine. There's a lot of billionaires I do think have negative intentions. And at the end of the day, whether they do or whether they don't, the people who referee that, the people who monitor their behavior to make sure that they do not overstep to harm the people is the government. And so if we continue to hate government and blame government and just keep chalking it up to the government, we're not looking at the problem. We're not addressing the actual problem, the people that we need to be addressing, which is the billionaires who put all the politicians in there in the first place with their money. Because we ended up passing these laws that allowed them to do that. Unlimited campaign contributions. You know, Robin Williams used to have a joke. Rest his soul, such one of the best comedians ever. But he had a joke where he said politicians should be like NASCAR drivers and wear the logos of all their sponsors on their uniforms when they're running for office. I always thought that was genius, but it's true. That's where we are. These people are funded by big-time, huge corporations, military-industrial complex, oil and energy complex, tech complex, finance complex, the banks. These big, giant corporations give the money to the candidates they want to win, who are going to do their bidding. And then keep in mind that there's a benefit to it too. The politicians get in there, and now they're on the inside with all these billionaire oligarchs, and they know firsthand information about what companies are doing before the people do, and that's why they are beating the S&P 500 with their stock investments. No one beats the S&P 500, but politicians in America do. You ever wonder why? Why they're constantly having serious gains in the stock market? Because they're in the club. They're in the club, and they were put there by the club. And that is the problem. Not Donald Trump, not Republicans, not Democrats, not liberals, not a fucking green-haired college girl who wants to fucking like have identify as a boy instead of a girl. That's not the fucking problem. It's not the problem. Even some old fucking guy who's 60 years old that's a MAGA, that's racist as fuck, that lives in, some rural fucking area, he ain't even the problem. I mean, his bigotry sucks and he's stupid, but at the end of the day, that is not what's causing the fucking problem. That is not the cause of what the fuck is going on that is fucking up the country. It is not MAGA. It is not a racist. It is not a fucking lesbian, a protester. It is not it isn't liberals. It isn't conservatives. It's billionaire oligarchs that own the politicians because they put them there. It's not like politicians win and then they bribe them. No. The politicians that they don't want to win won't win, period, because they won't fund them to win. So the people that are in office, the majority, are put there by the billionaire corporations. They're put there. So stop saying the government is corrupt and change the statement to the government has been corrupted by billionaires, because that's the truth. And then you put the accountability on the people that you need to give the accountability to. The people who corrupted the government. And again, it's not a bug, it's a feature. They did this on purpose. Read the Lewis Powell memorandum. Google it and read it. I know a lot of you don't like to fucking read, but I'm telling you right now, Google it and read the Lewis Powell memorandum. The Louis Powell memorandum, it was literally an agenda. They wanted to intentionally create job insecurity. They wanted to intentionally create wages people can't live on. Why? Because if people are focusing on surviving and having to figure out a way to get paid and survive, then they're less concerned about their rights. People were doing so well in the 50s and 60s because our economy was literally the most kick-ass it ever was in history, thanks to Franklin D. Roosevelt's policies. We had one of the best economies in the world ever, in world history. And everybody was so prosperous and not starving that they looked at more important things like their rights. And the corporations saw a fucking major problem with that. Read the Lewis Powell memorandum. Look up Buckley v. Valeo. Look up Citizens United. Read what these laws are. Read when they were enacted. Read what they did, what they do. And tell me that it's the government that's the problem. Because it's not. It's not the government. It is laws that we allowed to get passed. The representatives who are in office that are not funded by the billionaires, the representatives who managed to win a Senate race, managed to win a House race without being funded by the billionaires, those are the people we need to support. The people who want to actually represent their constituents. I'm not going to tell you to vote Republican. I'm not going to tell you to vote Democrat. I'm not going to tell you which way to vote. Because if you're an American, you can vote any way you want. That's the right. That's your right to be an American. But what I will tell you is that if anyone that you want to vote for has taken large sums of money from billionaires and billionaire oligarchs and tech companies and military, industrial, oil and energy, any of these gigantic companies, I would steer clear. Because that is what's the problem with the country. That's the issue. Nothing else. You know, we're embarking on a time right now that is the most dangerous. We are, the next 3 to 5 years is going to be tumultuous. People have no idea what's coming. I live in the city of Los Angeles, so I know it's coming. In LA, we're an advanced city. We get a lot of everything, all the technologies and everything much sooner than most like rural towns. So if you're out there and you live in a rural community, you're not seeing self-driving vehicles all over the highways. And I'm not talking about one occasionally here and there. I'm talking about thousands, thousands and thousands of self-driving cars all over the city streets in LA. I'm talking about truck drivers cooked, Uber drivers cooked. Okay? Software that just came out like Claude 4.6, Opus, that allows you to build a website in mere minutes. Any app, anything you want, any video game, any software, anything from minutes to a couple of days, depending on the size of the project. Coders are cooked. People who went to school for decades to learn programming have no job. Nobody needs them anymore. I mean, there's a certain level of high degree where they're still useful, but that'll be gone in the next 3 years. Wiped out. Because what Opus can do right now is so good and so superior that even now it could wipe out 70 to 80% of what programmers can do. But in a year, 2 years, 3 years, it's gone. It's gone. Companies are doing everything they can to replace everybody, secretaries, middle management, everybody. Nobody has to look anymore at the numbers. Nobody has to, they're going to have dashboards created, AI programming, running things. They're not going to need, they're going to have AI customer service. It's already happening all over the country. People who work from home right now answering the phones when you call AT&T, they're gone. They're gone. They're going to be replaced by AI. Why would a company pay them when they can just have a fucking machine do it? And all of this is about to happen very fucking rapidly. And all of the power is about to be, and the wealth, all of the power and wealth is about to be extremely concentrated at the top. Because I don't own an AI data center, and neither do you. I don't own an AI data center. You don't own an AI data center. You know who does? Google, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon's about to. I know they're about to create, tens of billions of dollars in AI infrastructure. Okay? Palantir. These companies own data centers. We don't. So make no mistake about it, when every single thing in our society is running on the infrastructure of artificial intelligence, and there are no jobs because of it, every single thing that's governing and running everything that's in our society will be ran by data centers owned and controlled by 6 to 8 corporations. 6 to 8 companies. And that's it now. With the way things go, monopolizing, it wouldn't shock me if, in the future you'll see a Meta buyout like a Palantir, or you'll see a Tesla buyout like and Google will buy out like a Meta or whatever. I mean, and over time, there'll probably only be like 2 companies. Because that's what happens with every sector of business in America. Look at banks. When I was young, there was 1 million banks. Not anymore. Every bank on every corner, everywhere in the country is owned by one of 3. Same thing's going to happen with artificial intelligence. It's only a matter of time. And that's why they're in a race to see who can get the most advanced. But let's talk about socioeconomic mobility real quick. When we talk about socioeconomic mobility, what is that? Well, that is, years ago, there was no Jeff Bezos. The people who had all the money, let's say like in the 80s, were the companies like AT&T, or the companies like Procter and Gamble, companies like, the Merrill Lynch, and the banks and corporate, whatever. There were certain people that own these companies, but there was no Jeff Bezos. He didn't exist. But what was Jeff Bezos able to do? He was able to utilize something called socioeconomic mobility. He was able to take advantage of the system of America to create a company and then become the next billionaire. Later on, that didn't exist. New family, new bloodline, new power enters the equation. That's going to be gone. Because if everything is being invented and everything's being created with AI and AI tools, and everybody has access to those same tools, keep in mind that the general public does not get access to artificial intelligence tools until after companies like Google and Microsoft already had it for months. They have the data centers. So they're getting AI to point at AI and learn to get better and better and better. And they're like you take like Google Flow. Right now you can make movies that are literally major motion picture quality with Google Flow. Does everybody have it? No, it's extremely VIP only, limited access. People in Hollywood that have higher up connections, they have access and they're making AI movies with that right now. The general public doesn't have that. They don't have that. Google Flow is around, but the general public now we get Sora from OpenAI to make like little 10-second clips that don't even look that realistic still. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. So if the average American who's creative and has an idea, ooh, I want to invent something, and now I can use AI to invent it. The AI you're using to invent that idea, Google already had that AI for 6 months before you did. You don't think they have a team of people who already thought of that idea? So that means every invention is going to be constantly curated and then developed by the same corporations that own all the AI data centers. And then, you know, I don't even want to get started on the negative paranoid side when I think about how they have drones that literally can scan a 1.5 mile radius and scan 40,000 faces a second and identify who you are. AI drones that can scan 40,000 facial recognitions within a 1.5 mile radius in a second. So if these 6 to 8 companies, and I'm not saying that they are or that they will, I'm just saying if they wanted to completely dominate and take control and force everybody to live under their whim, and since there's no jobs, let's say they issue a UBI and everybody's going to live off of some kind of fucking stipend because there's no jobs, right? And to save the economy, they have to give people money. That's unsustainable. That's not going to last. That's going to crash. And then what happens when everybody's sitting around living off of them, and then you get in a car and it's AI taking you somewhere? You go into a building and the door opens because AI is controlling it. You get an elevator. Now elevators are being controlled with artificial intelligence or whatever. Every single aspect of our lives, AI, and everything, right? If those are all being controlled by data centers across the country owned by 6 to 8 corporations, and they are giving you a dole to live on, who's to say if they don't decide to flip a switch and say, you know what, we want to have total control and power over everybody. Do what we say or die. What are you going to do? How are you going to resist when they have fucking drones that can fly around and scan 40,000 faces a second in a 1.5 mile radius? How are you going to fucking resist? If they decided to kill anybody who would rise up against this, right? And I know people are probably thinking like, oh man, you're uber paranoid, bro. AI is cool. It's going to be great. I don't have a fear of AI. I don't have a fear of technology. I don't have a fear of advancing into the future. Those are not my fears. I am not scared of AI. I am scared of AI in the power of a few who may not have good intentions. We already know that they don't. We've already seen how a lot of these people don't. Some of these people are in the fucking Epstein files and are being related to questionable activity. You know, Peter Thiel has talked about transhumanism. He's telling people that anyone who's against tech is the Antichrist. He's literally out there saying that. And he owns Palantir. Elon Musk is talking about how he wants to impregnate multiple women, which, by the way, Jeffrey Epstein said the same thing. He was going to use Zorro Ranch as basically a fucking a baby farm. He was going to bring all these underage girls there and knock them all up, 20 at a time, he said. This is true. He wanted to knock up 20 underage girls at a time. And what was Jeffrey Epstein? He was a transhumanist. What is Peter Thiel? He's a transhumanist. Peter Thiel is in the files. Now, again, I'm not, I'm the last person to want to, try to attack or judge anybody, but I think that this is something that we have to take a look at. Peter Thiel owns Palantir, which has all the military contracts. The man in charge of the AI for the US military is in the Epstein files and has literally openly stated things like that when he was asked, do you think humans should be, what was it? Do you think humans should, what was the question he was asked? Something about, do you think that humanity, oh, I can't remember the question, but he basically made some sort of statement that alluded to the fact that humans that are not being more perfected by science and technology, like becoming half machine, half human, that unless they do that, that we're flawed and that we deserve to die off. This is the stuff that these people are saying out loud in open general public. So I think that when you see this, okay, when you see people like the Ellisons, right, going by Paramount Global, and then immediately you see CBS, which is owned by Paramount Global, suddenly become completely right-wing rhetoric, totally everything Trump can do no wrong, all this crazy stuff, right? And you know that Larry Ellison is another person who owns all these data centers. Nationwide, he's opening up data centers all the time. He is just as involved in that. And by the way, these data centers are destroying farmlands. These data centers are polluting the earth. These data centers are causing major fucking problems. The Environmental Protection Agency would have never allowed the shit that they're doing. And they know that. That's why they love Trump. Because he goes in there and he fucking axes the entire EPA and gets rid of all regulatory measures and lets them fucking run roughshod over the whole country. And they love it because they're like, okay, he may get impeached. Okay, but we got 3 years while he's in office to put this plan in place and get it all completely orchestrated so that by the time he's gone, it's already done and it's too late. And this is where we are. This is where we are right now. And by the way, if you guys can hear that buzzing, there's people doing construction all around my spot. It's so annoying. It's so fucking annoying. One of the things that I wish I would have known before I rented this is that I was going to be dealing with 24/7 fucking construction going on around my unit. But anyways, hopefully you guys can't hear it. But so anyway, my point is that as long as you keep blaming the government, right now, when you have Trump in office and he is not regulating them and he's letting them do whatever they want, that's exactly the problem. That's what I mean when I say government is important, because Trump was put in office this time around heavily supported by these tech people and these tech oligarchs for a reason. For a reason. Okay? So now what I'm trying to tell you is if you have a leader in the next campaign, in the next election, who wins that is not on the dole of these people, then that leader may regulate them. And that's why government itself just needs to be fixed. We need to overturn Buckley v. Valeo or change it, alter it somehow. We need to abolish Citizens United. We need to protect our politicians from this bullshit, not blame them for every fucking wrong thing that happens. Because the people that are fucking you over right now are not them. It's not them. And the politicians that are in office that are allowing them to do it are not real politicians. They're shills that were put there by billionaires. So until you stop the billionaires from, using their money to fill the fucking Congress with shills, you don't have a government. And I'll end on that note. My name is Tom Kane. This was another episode of the Executives Playbook. Please like my video if you haven't yet. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Hit the little bell so you can be notified. And I'll be here every day. I appreciate it. I know I try to be here every day, but I run a business and sometimes it's very difficult and the day gets away from me. But as things cool down here over the next week or two, I will be here far more consistently on a daily basis. So stick with me, guys. Love you. Thank you for tuning in. And I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Thanks.